In today's video, I want to talk about my own mental health journey. A lot of people always ask me, why am I so fascinated and passionate about mental health, about peak performance, about stress, and what have all these different topics in common? So today I want to share a little bit more about my own mental health journey and what happened to me that today I'm talking about this subject so openly. I want to talk with you about when I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression, if I took medication or not, how I started to be more aware of my own mental health, and I of course want to give you a couple of insights as well onto what you can do in order to start being more aware of your own mental health and why it is so important for you to start taking care of your mental health. So let's get started. My name is Julia Arndt and I'm excited that you're stopping by my YouTube channel today to learn a little bit about my own mental health journey. If this is one of the first videos that you're watching in my series and from my YouTube channel, I highly recommend to you to subscribe to my YouTube channel and make sure that you hit the little bell in order to receive notifications every time I'm uploading new videos, because I'm producing a lot of content in terms of stress management, peak performance, habit building, goal setting, all the things. And so I want to make sure that you learn all the things about really stress management and peak performance habits, because if you are a high achiever and if you want to stay that way, it is extremely important that you are taking care of your mental health. Before we're talking today about my own mental health journey, I want to talk with you about what mental health even means, because there is still so much stigma around mental health. And so I went on Google and I typed in mental health definition, and what mental health really means is simply a person's condition with regard to their psychological and emotional well-being. And let's be honest, we all have emotional and psychological well-being, and in fact it is really, really important that we are taking care of our own mental health, because we are making all of the decisions with our mind. Everything in life is decided by our beautiful brains. And so if we are not taking care of that, that will impact all different areas of our life. So mental health is really, really important. And if you think about it, especially when we're talking about peak performance, it is really fascinating that if we are not taking care of our mental health and if we have not a strong mindset, it is going to be really, really difficult to do anything else in our life, to go exercise, to eat healthy, to do the right things, right? To manage our time effectively and to be productive and all these different things. Because when we are not having a strong mind, it's going to be very, very difficult to convince ourselves that we need to exercise and that we need to eat healthy. Because if our brain is foggy and if we're feeling tired and mentally exhausted, we're not going to do anything. So that is why mental health is so important, and that is why I want you to start thinking about mental health on a more regular basis. So now that we know what mental health is, let's talk about my own mental health journey. And when I started to think about doing this video and thinking about this specific topic, I thought back to a time when I started to listen to podcasts in order to open my mind to new ideas and to start really thinking about my own personal development. For those of you that don't know me yet and might be wondering at this point where my accent is from, I'm originally from Germany, and so when I started to dive into personal development, I actually started to listen to a German podcast. And the German coach that I really love and that I've been following for many, many years now, her name is Laura Marlina Seiler. She did a podcast episode about highly sensitive people, and that, I must say, really, really changed my life. And when she was talking about highly sensitive people, it dawned on me that I'm absolutely a highly sensitive person and that I'm taking in a lot more things that maybe the average person might take in terms of audio, visual, senses, all the different things. So for example, when I went to a party in the evening, I always never really liked that because I always felt extremely exhausted. I felt like there was too much noise, too many people, and I just didn't really like it. So when I would come home, I would need a lot of time in order to recharge and relax because it was just too much for my senses. So I never really knew that, and I never really, put a word on it. But as soon as I started to listen to this podcast episode and dove a little bit more into the topic of highly sensitive people, I was really amazed by how many boxes I could tick. So that was how everything started. So I listened to this podcast by Laura Marlina Seiler about highly sensitive people. And I started to be more aware of my own signals of my body. I started to be more aware of what's going on in my head, and I realized that I am overthinking things a lot. I'm overanalyzing things. And when I started to be more aware of my own mental health and my own thoughts on my mind, because we are all having a lot of thoughts on our mind all day long, I started to realize how many of these thoughts were negative. How many of these thoughts were really worrying and overanalyzing, and how often I would just simply feel like my brain and my mind wouldn't shut up. No matter if I would bike to work or sit in a meeting or lay in bed at night, I felt like my thoughts were constantly on. That was really tiring. And as soon as I realized what was really going on in my head, and I was really amazed by how bad the quality of my thoughts was. So that is really how I started to become more aware of my own mental health. I started to listen to this podcast, and I just started to learn more about different people and how they are functioning and what they are thinking about in their day-to-day. And then I obviously started to think about it more for myself as well. So let me take you back a little bit. So at the time I had just moved to the US from Ireland, and I had just started a new job at Google in Silicon Valley, and I was extremely busy. I had a new project, I had a new team, I had a new environment. All of the different things were new to me, and also on top of that I also broke up with my boyfriend at the time, so I was all by myself. So there were a lot of new things that were happening in my life, and I wasn't in a really good spot, honestly. I was extremely sad, I felt really alone, and it took me a really long time to get over the heartbreak in order to settle down in that new country, even though I had been traveling around the world for already over 8 years at the time, or 7 years. I was really used to getting adapted to new environments, meeting new people, but I felt like it was a little bit more difficult in this new setting. So I started to do my own trips, and I found Lake Tahoe, which was only 4 hours driving away from Silicon Valley, and I completely fell in love with this beautiful place. I fell absolutely in love with the beautiful nature and with this calm environment, and I really, really enjoyed being here where I am today. And so I started to commute a lot, right? So every weekend I would drive 250 miles each way to go to Tahoe, and then at the end of the weekend I would drive back to Silicon Valley to do my job during the week. And I did that for a total of 3 years. So I did that for a really long time, and of course there's a lot of other things that happened during those 3 years, right? I got a new job, I got a new manager, I met a new boyfriend, my fiance today, and so there were a lot of things going on in my life, and I was really, really busy. And at the same time, I was also starting to build small online businesses at the side. So I had my full-time job, I was working on my own creative ideas, and I was commuting every month for 2,000 miles. And that was a lot of stress. And because of all the things that were going on in my life, I started to deprioritize myself. Because of all the things that were going on in my life, I stopped prioritizing myself. So for example, because I was so tired, I was mentally so drained from focusing on the road during the weekends of a lot of driving by myself, and then of course working 40 to 60 hours during the week on the different projects that I had, both for my job as well as my side hustles, I started to be extremely mentally drained. And so what happened? I started to deprioritize myself because I felt like I simply didn't have the energy anymore to go to the gym and eat healthy. I was just super drained, and all I wanted to do at the end of the day is crash on the couch, watch a couple of hours of Netflix, eat some chocolate, and veggie out. I didn't feel like moving. I didn't feel like doing anything. I really just wanted to switch off. I was totally drained and I didn't have any energy to exercise or to make smart decisions about my lifestyle. All I wanted to work hard during the week, and then I wanted to get to Tahoe during the weekend to enjoy myself. And so that over a long period of time started to really weigh on me. I started to have a lot of negative thoughts about all of the things that were going on in my life. I was wondering if I was still in the right job, if all of the things that I was doing were the right things, if it was worth it to commute so much, if I just wanted to leave my job, or if I wanted to be full-time in Tahoe, right? There were all these different questions going on, and I thought about it all the time. I was overanalyzing all these different questions all the time. So I started to take things too personally. For example, every email that came in felt like a threat to my skill, questioning my ability and judgment, even though people probably didn't even mean anything bad, right? They were just trying to work with me, but because I was so overworked and I was so tired all the time and I didn't take time for myself, I just started to take things super personally, which is a really big sign when you are mentally exhausted and when you're having too much stress in your life. It's a really good sign, because all of a sudden we feel like we're constantly having fights with, for example, our partner. We constantly have conflicts with our stakeholders, and we feel like everybody means not really well. We really feel like the whole world is against us. We're starting to have these negative thoughts, right? And so this is what happened to me as well, but I wasn't super aware of it. On the one hand, yes, I was aware of all these different things that started to happen to me, but at the same time, I was not really. And honestly, I just ignored all of the things. I was not aware and I wasn't really conscious. One of the things that also happened during the time was that I started to have really trouble to sleep. I would fall asleep with my laptop in my bed, watching shows until late at night until I would fall asleep, because I had so much trouble falling asleep by myself, because I had so much stuff on my mind and I really wanted to just disconnect and not think about anything. And then if I would wake up in the middle of the night because I had to go to the bathroom, I would go back, lay back down, and I would have trouble falling back asleep because my head was racing with thoughts about all the things that still needed to get done. So that was a cycle that started to kind of be more prevalent, right? At the beginning, it might have only been once a week, but then it started to be every third day, every second day, until it just started to be just a new normal. I was always having these negative thoughts, and I was constantly getting in fights with my partner, making him responsible for how I felt. So at the end of July 2018, I felt like I just couldn't do it anymore. There were so many things going on in my life that I wasn't happy about. I was running in all different kinds of directions. I was working, of course, at my full-time job. I had 2 side businesses that I was trying to build. I was doing a lot of different things in the evenings and during the weekends. I was also interviewing for new jobs, trying to find something in the area. There was just so much going on. And on top of that, of course, I was also commuting 2,000 miles a month, and I didn't really take time for myself. And because I had been listening to that podcast for a while, I started to be more aware of what was going on in my head. And a lot of the things, when I started to be really conscious about my own thoughts, were really negative, and were so negative to a point that I was hoping that at the end of a Sunday, at the end of July 2018, I started to realize that my thoughts were so negative that they started to scare me a little bit. Because every Sunday evening before I had to go back to the Bay Area, to go back to my full-time job and be alone for a couple of days, I was having thoughts around like hoping that I would have a car accident, or hoping that something would happen to me, that I just didn't have to commute anymore and I didn't have to go back to my job. And it was just really, really negative. And so at some point I just had a conscious moment and I told myself, wow, thinking that is not really healthy. It's not really healthy to hope that I'm going to have an accident in order to be able to hospitalize and stay at home for a couple of weeks. So that really scared me. And obviously that was also a process. These thoughts started to come up from time to time, and I of course ignored them until I just really couldn't ignore them any longer, and all of the different things that were going on in my life really started to crumble. So I made a tough decision and I decided to go to the doctor in order to see what was going on. And when I went to the doctor, they asked me to fill out a health questionnaire that I had never seen before, and I had no idea what the questions were about or what they were trying to diagnose. So I just went ahead and I answered a couple of these questions. And when the doctor called me in order to give me the results of the 2 health questionnaires that they had asked me to fill in, the diagnosis for them was really clear. The doctor told me that I had depression and anxiety. And on the one hand, that was a big surprise. And on the other hand, it obviously wasn't, because I was in my own body and I had realized that something was definitely not right anymore. And I had no idea at that time what anxiety was, what depression was, what burnout was. And if you want to learn more about this, I have a podcast episode that's called Burnout, and I'm talking with you about exactly what happened in that time frame as well and how I got over it. So I don't want to get into that more in detail right now. But yeah, so that was really my mental health journey. And one of the things, of course, that the doctor said to me was that she can give me medication in order to help me manage my problem, right? She offered to give me anti-anxiety drugs and antidepressants. And I'm a person that is super against any types of drugs, because I firmly believe that our body is giving us certain signals because we need to make a lifestyle change, because something is going on in our life that we need to pay attention to, right? Our body is trying to show us what is going on. And so I was absolutely completely against taking any type of medication. And I said to my doctor, you know what? I want to figure this out by myself. I need a leave of absence. I need to stay at home to figure all these different things out. She advised me to do speak therapy, which I did for a couple of hours. But honestly, there were a lot of different things going on in my life, and just the fact of being by myself for a couple of weeks at home and figuring my life out and not having all these different stressors in my life anymore was a big relief for me at the time, to really understand what was going on and what did I want to do next. And I was on a medical leave for a total of 12 weeks, and I really had time to figure a lot of different things out. During that time, for example, I learned a lot about what depression is, what anxiety is, what burnout is. I learned about stress management. I learned about why it is so important to have different rituals and routines in your life. And I started to test out my own routines and rituals, which was a lot of fun and really gave me my strength back and helped me to manage my anxiety levels that were extremely high at the beginning. Really, they were so high. I didn't really know what was going on until the doctor told me that I had anxiety. And all of a sudden, when I was able to pinpoint why I was feeling the way I was feeling, it became very apparent to me how bad my condition was at the time. And so my mental health journey was really interesting, and I've learned so much along the way, and I am sharing all of the tools that I had to learn myself with you today. So if you have been watching this video all the way till the end, I really appreciate it. So I want to give you a couple of different resources that I would really like you to check out in order to learn more about the different topics that I talked about today. First of all, I do have a podcast myself as well on how to manage stress as a highly sensitive person. I think this is a really important subject, and it is in fact one of my most downloaded podcast episodes today, because a lot of people can identify as a highly sensitive person. So make sure to check that out. I also have a series on how to better sleep and why we are having trouble falling asleep in the first place and what you can do. So I'm sharing a couple of tools and techniques that you can apply in order to get better sleep. And if you want to learn more about how you can stop negative thoughts and how you can become more aware of the thoughts that are going on in your head, you can check out my podcast episode on how to stop overthinking. I shared a lot of information with you today, and I really want you to start diving into this subject. Mental health is extremely important. It shouldn't be a stigma anymore, because everybody has mental health. Not everybody has a mental illness, but everyone has mental health. And if you're not taking care of your mental health, and if you're feeling extremely drained and tired all the time, then this is the time that you really start exploring exploring this topic more and learn different tools and techniques in order to get better. And this is why I'm here. This is why I have this YouTube channel. This is why I am doing my podcast, because I am super fascinated by the subject myself, and I love to explore questions like what is going on in our brain when we are having negative thoughts? How can we stop these negative thoughts? How can we create new habits in order to move past these different things? How can we create a life that we really love? And you can find all of these different tools and all of these different videos on my YouTube channel. So make sure that you subscribe and that you also hit the little bell next to the subscribe button in order to receive notifications every time I am uploading new videos. So before we part ways today, I want to ask you if you are already aware of your negative thoughts. Have you thought about it? Have you paid a little bit more attention of what is really going on in your head all day long? We are all having thoughts all day long. In fact, we are thinking between 60 to 80,000 thoughts in a day, and 90% of these thoughts are repetitive. So when we're starting to pay more attention to our thoughts, it can give us a lot of insights into how we are currently feeling. So I want you to take just a minute and write a comment below this video to tell me, are you aware of your thoughts, and what are you most struggling with at the moment? What is really taking your time and your brain capacity at the moment because you are overanalyzing and overthinking a lot of different areas in your life, or maybe just one area in your life? And if you have any further questions for me, if there's anything that I haven't talked about in this video today, make sure to let me know. I am more than happy to do another video and to talk with you about anything that you would like to know and anything I can help you with, because this is why I'm here and this is why I'm ultimately doing these videos. So thank you so much for watching today. Have a wonderful day, and I talk to you really soon.